Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting pretty fucking sick of these game companies basically nickel-and-diming gamers for all this DLC bullshit, and particularly when we're talking things like avatars, insignificant minor shit like I think the horse armor of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, that was probably the starting point of this madness, and perhaps the best example of what I'm talking about. Just examples of gaming companies fucking over the consumer with minor purchases that, okay, they may look small and insignificant in separate pieces, but when you start to add them up and you buy a thing here, a thing there, like, okay, I'm going to buy a skin from this game, I'm going to buy an avatar from this game, I'm going to buy some horse armor from this game, I'm going to buy some, fucking, like, backgrounds or whatever from this game, I'm going to buy some power-ups. That shit adds up over time. And when you keep on going and going and going and getting so little in return for that, that adds up over time. And at the end of the day, you can find yourself wasting tens or even hundreds of dollars on insignificant bullshit that adds very little to your game. And I will backpedal a little here and say, on the DLC front, for those who don't know, that stands for downloadable content in games. Actual downloadable packs in games, I don't have much of a problem with, as long as the game developers put time and effort into the original product that they advertise and release as a full-fledged game. Now, the problem comes when you have these really short, very deceptively small, slimmed-down games that pass as full-fledged games, released for a price of $60, 50 to 60 bucks. Generally, 60 is the asking price these days, which is a whole nother story. I think that's just way overpriced for most games, anyways. But the reason is that many of these $60 games, if you exclude the online support, they're very short and brief, very slimmed down, very linear oftentimes. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you know I'm not a huge fan of the linear aspect of games, but, I mean, if that's your thing, that's fine. But even if you are okay with linear games, oftentimes people will find themselves beating a video game within the span of 8, 10 hours, and all of a sudden they're done playing the game, and they either sell it back at a discount at GameStop or something like that, or they just leave it on the shelf and it collects dust, and they're out $60. And, I would contend that maybe they got, $10 worth of content, worth of fun out of that by beating it in the course of a week or a month even. That's obviously, a relative concept, but to me, if you're spending $60 on entertainment, it should last you much longer than 5 to 10 hours of actual gameplay. And a lot of these, especially FPS action type games, are running people up the full price of $60, and yet they're still beating the game, like I said, in 5 to 10 hours. And that's fine if you have online support, but just like the DLC, developers shouldn't account for this. A lot of people don't have online, and some people that have online refuse to pay for it, and I can't say I blame them. For my money, you have to make a game with the understanding that people are going to want a full-fledged experience offline and without downloadable content. Most developers these days are making a really short game and then just kind of shrugging their shoulders and saying, well, we have the online to add replay value, and we're going to pump out these downloadable content packs, one for every 6 months for the next 2-3 years, which is fine. Like I said, I actually like downloadable content. It adds more excitement to a game. You're anticipating more content after you've already bought your game, which is cool. It's kind of like an ongoing experience that keeps on providing for you. But the problem is, most of these developers, I feel, are compensating for the actual first product they release, which should be a full-fledged game. And I feel like a lot of that's being trimmed down and just kind of segregated into different pieces and then pumped out later down the line as DLC. That is one of the biggest problems I see with the game industry, if not the biggest. And a lot of gamers, sadly, are just buying this hook, line, and sinker. I mean, I see this problem, and even myself, I get suckered into this a lot of times, so I can't imagine people that don't see this problem, how much they get suckered in. It's just sad. I'll give a couple of quick examples. Recently, one of my most anticipated games in the past probably few years came out. It's a South Park game, The Stick of Truth, which, don't get me wrong, it's a blast to play. I love the game, but unfortunately, me and my sister were huge South Park fanatics. Me in particular, I'm a South Park fanatic and an RPG fan, so I especially love the game. But we both finished the game within, like I said, about 6-7 hours. And I'm on my second game, almost done with my second game. My sister is on her, I believe, 4th or 5th game, and that right there is the problem I foresee. This developer, Obsidian, while they made, a great game in Fallout, glitchy, I will say, Fallout New Vegas, I feel like they're anticipating some downloadable content, purposely kind of skimped out on the game, and then they're just going to shrug their shoulders and say, well, we have more coming, so if you beat the game, just stay tuned for the downloadable content. That is a problem that I feel is just getting worse and worse. And if you're going to have that system of cranking out downloadable content, maybe tacking on a few 3 to 5 hours of gameplay with each DLC pack, and then charging customers an additional 10 to 20 bucks sometimes for that stuff, you, at the very least, you have to either make your game fully fledged in the first place and keep it $60, that's fine, or you have to make the initial buying the price cheaper, make it $30 or $40, then you warrant the asking price of an additional $20 or $30 down the pipeline of 3 or 4 more packs of downloadable content. Besides the South Park game that I just mentioned, FPSs are probably the biggest culprit of this, besides the phone games, which I won't even get into that. That's just a whole nother set of bullshit. You got stuff like Plants vs. Zombies 2, which is, it's a shame because the foundation of the game is actually pretty solid and it's a lot of fun, but they essentially make this system of they have a loophole of you can basically beat the entire game without buying a penny more of extra content, but it's nearly impossible to pull off. So they entice you by buying, be like, okay, you can buy these power-ups for $1. What's $1? It's nothing. It's chump change. But that, again, that goes back to my beginning argument. That shit adds up over time. So, on the phone front, the Android iPhone software, that's just, the problem has reached unimaginable heights that even have surpassed the mainstream console gaming front, in that it's so profundant in that sector, and they really, they don't make you do it as much as they entice you to do it. So it's more sneaky and conniving in that area, which I think is even worse. But luckily, I'm not a big fan of that phone game junk for the most part, anyways. But that's basically what I fear is going to happen in the mainstream gaming front. The DLC is going to get sneakier, more conniving. They're going to entice people in new and different ways, which they're already kind of doing on the smartphone and tablet front. And it's just like I feel like quality of the games are suffering in favor of extra content down the line. If you're going to release extra content down the line, that's great. Like I said, the FPS genre, it actually works well in some ways for FPS online games in particular, because people get sick of the same levels when they're playing online. They may want new levels, like the Call of Duty games. While most of the DLC I find for Call of Duty, the levels aren't as good, the new stuff, it's still cool to have the option of, okay, I'm getting sick of playing online with these levels, I want something new. That's cool, but at the end of the day, you have to look at the initial product, and for games like Call of Duty and things like that, the single player of those games, I burn through pretty fast, and I'm not that good at first-person shooters. So if I can burn through those fast, that's a problem. Most people are buying those Call of Duty, Halo, Titanfall type games for the online multiplayer at this point. So they're basically setting themselves up to buying DLC, and the developers know this, and that's why they're cranking out all these new online levels. So at the end of the day, I don't know. Like I said, it's great to have new content. It's cool. Another game I really love, another example, is Borderlands 2, but they've been cranking out DLC left and right, and unfortunately the main game, again, is very, very fast. You beat the game quickly, it's kind of small, even with the side quests included. So, really, it really boils down to speculation. You don't know if the developers skimped out on the main game, but all you can look at is history and past games. And when I see a lot of retro games, I see a lot longer games with more replay value, even without online play. And then I look at these modern games like the single player in Call of Duty and Borderlands 2, an RPG of all things, and the game is still pretty quick and pretty small, and it goes fast. So the only conclusion I can reach is these developers are purposely skimping out on the initial product that they release, and they're still selling it at a full-fledged $60 game price, which I feel is completely wrong, and I stand completely against that, and that is probably the single most problem of the gaming industry today. And gamers are eventually going to catch on to that. I mean, I hope they do. If they don't, then this problem is eventually going to reach the level of smartphones where it's just a complete shitstorm of nickeling and diming, and you have situations like Plants vs. Zombies 2, which unfortunately is, like I said, the foundation is a great game, but you basically have to buy everything, like everything significant in the game you must buy, or at least consider buying if you want a real shot at beating the game. And I just see the industry going more and more in that direction, and it kind of saddens me a little bit, I have to say. So that's about it, guys. Had to get that off my chest. Hopefully, I really hope a lot of these cheaper indie games like Minecraft and Terraria and things like that show that you can still have a really in-depth, long, fully fleshed out game without the need of DLC, and still gain a lot of sales and a lot of profit. Now, I will stress one more time, DLC is fine with me, just don't skimp out on your initial product that you promise is a full-fledged game and release it at the price of $60. If you're going to do that, either crap out on the initial product and release it at a discount and say, okay, we're releasing our game now for $30, but this is only half the game. We're going to spread it out, give you the other 30 in DLC packs within the next couple of years. That could actually be cool and exciting, because then it's like you beat the game, you're ready for more, and then more keeps coming down the pipeline. But at the end of the day, a lot of these companies are releasing extra shortened games at the full price, and in fact sometimes raising prices because they use the excuse that, well, it's a new console, the graphics are greater, development costs are going up, but then they're making pure profit off of these purely digital releases of DLC packs anyways. So the gap to me is just widening between content and price, and quality and price for that matter, but that's a different story. One I might talk about in a future video. But anyways, just wanted to talk about that. Subscribe if you enjoyed, or even if you didn't enjoy, disagree with my comments, but are intrigued and want to hear more. Feel free to comment, subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Alright, later.